Hey everybody, before we start this episode of the Going Yard podcast, we are excited to announce our affiliation with Baseball Lifestyle 101. If you want to help out the podcast and buy something special for that baseball player in your life, check out BL101.com for shirts, hats, book bags, and much, much more. Be sure to use the promo code GYP10 at checkout for 10% off of your order. That's GYP10 for 10% off. Hey, what's up, Going Yard Podcast softball fans? Thanks for coming out. This is another Tuesday episode. It's been a while since we had a Tuesday softball episode, but I think you guys are going to enjoy this one. Today we talked to Morgan Stewart. Morgan is a softball coach and also former infielder. She played softball at Washington University and was on the 2009 Women's College World Series championship team. So she knows a lot about winning, a lot about working. She also played on the Philippines women's national softball team as well. And her goal as a coach is to produce valuable teammates and self-reliant athletes. And you can tell that from what you hear on this interview today. We had a lot of fun talking to her. If you want to check her out before the interview or have it up while you're listening, you can check her out at her website. It's morganstewart.com. Stewart is Stuart, and on Instagram at morganstewart18. Enjoy. Hey, Morgan, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Hey, Morgan, it's Tyler. Appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and our listeners and share your knowledge and any advice you might have for coaches and players alike out there who listen to this.
Absolutely. Hopefully I can, be of some help to any of those coaches and players that are listening. I know you guys have a lot of people. I had actually quite a few messages asking me to come on this podcast from some of your listeners.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
I'm really excited.
I'm sorry if they were relentless. We apologize.
It worked.
No, it was good.
Awesome.
If you can, Morgan, for people who aren't familiar with you, can you talk about your time in high school and the recruiting process of how you ended up going to Washington University to play softball?
Absolutely. So I'm from Southern California. Some people refer to that region as a little bit of a hotbed for softball. And so a lot of people actually ask me, well, how'd you end up in Seattle from sunny California to damp and rainy Seattle? Mm-hmm. And it's definitely just due to that recruiting process. So I was one of those first early recruits. And I say that lightly just because early meant junior year of high school. And now it's gone a little bit crazy and the rules have kind of dialed it back a little bit. But so my sophomore year, I was playing in a 16 and under tournament. Washington saw me, and they were actually my first unofficial visit. I actually took two other ones, one to Arizona, one to Arizona State, and I just fell in love with the scenery. I visited Seattle in, I believe, September. And so I think I was tricked a little bit. We beat this football team beat UCLA that weekend. It was a great trip. I did not expect to go to Washington, but I had committed to wanting to be part of that first national championship softball team. And lucky for us that dream was accomplished. So, yeah, very happy with my process and the result.
Well, if you could for me, just when you went from the high school level into the collegiate level, can you talk about the change in commitment, whether it was for the studies part of it or working out during the season and in the off season? Can you just talk about the change in commitment level going from high school to college?
Definitely. I think a lot of travel ball players would agree that once you start playing travel softball, you have to have a pretty high commitment level. Every weekend is taken up, and then you have your private coaching. So, I mean, this was back when I was growing up. I'm almost 30 now. So it's been a little bit since I went through the process, but I remember thinking, wow, I mean, I thought that I was committed, but when I got to college, it's every day. You're seeing your teammates, your coaches, you're trying to watch video and get a little bit better. And all the while your body's taken a little bit of a beating too, because from your high school years, even though you're going all the time, it's a year round thing for travel softball. But, and this was back when I was playing, in reality, you're maybe going 4 days out of 7 playing softball. And when you go to that college level, it's an everyday thing. And I know that there are rules of dialing it back and certain hours that the coaches can't go past. But when you're trying to compete for a spot and that's that mentality of wanting to win a national championship, you're out there every day trying to do something.
Can you just talk about the excitement that comes with playing in the highest tournament, basically? I mean, now that the Olympics are back, I guess, but, in college softball, playing in that Women's College World Series, what it's like to play in that atmosphere, in that environment amongst the best women in the country, and then persevere to go through and win a national title, what that's like and that experience was like.
Yeah, it's everything that you might imagine it to be. I mean, in women's sports, in professional softball specifically, it's not like Major League Baseball, as you guys know. So that collegiate game, it's the culmination of every rep come into that one tournament at the Women's College World Series. And I just speak for myself. A lot of people have way different views and perspectives on it, but I think I put a lot of weight on that specific World Series just because in female sports, we don't have a lot of time, especially if a lot of us, our dreams weren't to get to a professional level. Maybe we wanted to pursue a different career or something has happened and it wasn't a childhood dream to play professional softball. In my mind, it was kind of like the clock. Once you step on that college campus, your clock starts ticking down, and in those days and time that you have left to be at your absolute best when it's required of you. Mm-hmm. So I think that, it was amazing having that opportunity and being on that specific field in Oklahoma City, and winning it. It was just a feeling that it was one of the best feelings I've had in my life. Just, I'm very fortunate. Not everybody gets to see that as a result of their hard work. And I know many, many teammates, spurring back from travel ball that worked just as hard, if not harder, and were just as talented, if not more talented than I was. But it's just, it's at that point, it's a matter of stars have to align, right, with national championship teams.
It's wild. It's even more exciting than watching, some of the men's college World Series, and even a lot of the World Series that we see year in and year out. The Women's College World Series is just so exciting to watch, even from home. I don't know what it is. It's just this level of competition and pride, and everything. Their entire career it's tonight, and it's just that feeling that kind of just comes through the TV screen when you're watching it. So I can definitely I can't imagine how that felt in person.
I just wanted to I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask what it was like to play for Heather Tarr and the amount of knowledge that she has for the game of women's softball.
I mean, it was great. I felt like I was always learning alongside her. She had only been a head coach for a few years before I set foot on campus, and I was one of her first recruits as head coach. Nice. And I really did feel like she never wanted to be stagnant in what she knew and what she could offer her players. And it was really inspiring as someone that was under her tutelage. She definitely led by example in that respect, because I think a lot of girls, when they get to college or even right before college, you kind of expect, okay, well, I got here, I should know everything that I need to know, or I need to be at a certain level. But she really preaches that the game doesn't allow for that kind of mentality. So you have to be able to learn and adapt. So I don't know, that has always stayed with me even after college.
Now, kind of to stay on that level here, while we're still back in the college days and even your playing days with the Philippines women's national softball team, was there a player or a coach that you looked up to or tried to emulate on the field? Where I'm just curious, we've heard a couple of favorites in the past interviews that we've done, and we know we have a lot of softball players listening. So I'm just curious to see who was that person for you.
Yeah, I think when I got to school, when I met Ashley Charters, she's older than me. She was an All-American shortstop and second baseman, speedy lefty. So I wasn't going to be the type of hitter that she was, but she had that gritty type of attitude. And I mean, she was just upperclassman. She was basically playing the position that I was recruited to play, which was shortstop. Mm-hmm. And when I got in, she actually had to redshirt that year, so I was able to start at short. But she was a great leader, and I've always looked up to her.
Nice.
What was it like going from college to the women's national team with the Philippines? What was the level of play like from one to the other?
Oh gosh, there was a big gap in between me finishing and playing on that national scope. So honestly, when I got a call and was invited to play with them, I almost felt guilty because I wasn't keeping up with my reps and I didn't know how I might be able to help because I definitely wasn't at my very tippy peak of my physical skill because I mean, softball is a game of reps and practice like any sport, right? So mm-hmm. when I put on a uniform, again, I didn't know how I was going to perform. It was first week out of play. We were playing Team USA, which if you're playing third base against Team USA with a pitcher throwing sub 70, it's a little bit scary and daunting, but mm-hmm. So Team USA obviously is great competition. But outside of the U.S., the sport of softball is still growing. So I went and played in the Asian Games. Gosh, I can't even remember the year, 2014, 2015, something like that. And there were teams that we blew out of the water, and there were teams, obviously China that we played. We played Japan, and we were beat. But it's very different. Very different. The level of money that's able to be put in by each different nation is so different. The resources are very different. And of course there's language barriers and things to deal with, but fun on a different level. One that, I don't know. I can't really describe it just because you're working all the way up and to get to college. So you kind of know what to expect. And that was kind of a surprise to me that I was going to be playing on that team. So it was a great experience, just very different.
I bet. Now, when did you decide to start coaching?
Honestly, after I graduated from college, I was done with the sport for a little bit, as I'm sure a lot of girls or women will have that feeling of just like, it's almost like a breakup, with the sport. It's like, well, yeah, I gave it everything and now it's over, and you get kind of emotional. And so I was more of the type that was like, okay, well, I got to find what else I'm good at. So kind of random, I went and worked at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center and just tried my hand at a quote unquote normal job. And I really, really missed the sport and just being active and moving around. So I moved into the coaching realm that very next year. So I lived in Seattle for a year after and went and volunteered at UC Riverside and got a job at Loyola Marymount. And having those jobs, I missed the development piece of the athlete, which I know is possible in the college game just because I experienced it when I went through it. But I really did miss developing that younger age group, those girls that are in those ages that they need the confidence boost. And I get, it's a longer story, I guess, than I give it credit for, but I'm definitely happy with my choice to go back to the sport.
Nice.
Now, how did you get involved with the package deal? And, how did you assume your role as being a defensive coach and all that goes with that? Can you just walk us through that a little bit?
Totally. Well, four of us, I'm not sure how familiar your listeners are with the package deal, but Jeff Schroeder, myself, Amanda Scarborough, Katie Schroeder, we came together, and obviously the glue in this, the person that knows all of us is Jen. She's kind of the ringleader of the package deal. So once we all kind of had gotten to know each other, worked together, coached together, we all had this idea to create the package deal. And the four of us were founders of it. It was all of us together going in on it. And initially, Katie and I had been doing private hitting coaching for years. I mean, I had started giving girl hitting lessons while I was in college, just like as kind of something to do. And with there's very limited ways to stay in the sport for women, right? So it's not like you just like the Major League Baseball where you go and work at like the front office or something like that. It's coaching or you give lessons, and that's kind of it. Clinic business it's a tough one, especially the traveling clinic business. So I guess the defense part of it only started when we really, really started seeing a need for it. And I took it on kind of as my baby a little bit, just like you guys, we really need to do this. I mean, people can't catch and throw when they're coming to these clinics. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, this is something that, I got a glove before I got a bat, right? When I was playing Little League Baseball, I just think that people need to learn how to play catch and need to hold it on the same level as hitting. So I definitely was an advocate for starting that defensive session, and obviously the other three girls were all for it. So as far as it growing, it's just a testament to people who follow us kind of trusting us and trusting that information and then really getting behind it.
Now, as you travel now from city to city, what do you see that are some of the differences from, different parts of the country and, some of the skill levels that some of the girls may have at different areas? And I mean, obviously, like we know California, Texas, Florida, those are kind of hotbeds and girls are playing softball year round. But what are some of the other parts of the country like that you're going to, and especially now with the winter months coming up?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The girls or families that are able to get out and play catch and get more reps, those are the girls that, I mean, their skills are going up at a faster rate. This winter, we're going to a lot of states that are going to be under snow by the time mid-January, late January hits, and things that I'll commonly see are just things that, I don't know. I guess when we started this 5 years ago, I didn't expect. Some of the girls that we see are actually sometimes better all-around athletes because they have to play different sports in different seasons. Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting. And with the trend in California or Texas per se, a lot of these girls are getting injured more. They're having a lot of shoulder and elbow injuries just because they're so accustomed to throwing all year round, and the body's just needs to be balanced, So some of these girls on the East Coast or say Midwest where they're not able to practice all the time or throw as hard as they can all the time, some of them are just healthier overall athletes just because of that time off. Kind of interesting. But yeah, I do think that there are states that are more behind in, say, the hand-eye coordination part of the game, which is playing catch and stopping the ball, just based on they're not able to do it as often as those Sunshine States.
Yeah. Now, sorry to go back and forth here from one thing to the other. We're going to get into some of the lessons and the trainings and things like that. We have questions for you. But I also saw on your site, I read that your training provides fundamental defensive tools, but also strengthens each player's mental armor. We ask questions like this at every interview because we know that between baseball and softball, it's a mental game. Can you talk a little bit about that aspect, how you teach it, and how important it actually is to have a strong mental armor?
Absolutely. I mean, I think anybody in the sport of baseball and softball has been told this piece of like, hey, this game is 90% mental. I mean, that percentage of time, you're pretty much standing around and playing that mental game, not only with the other team, but also in your own head. Just trying to beat your opponent to be able to recover the fastest, right? There's so much failure in our game. And the way that I try to implement this in my lessons or when I speak at clinics is more so allowing the failure, because that's or even encouraging it might be a better word, just because that's the only way that we're going to get to know our limits. It's the only way that we're going to know that we're going all out, is being able to reach that failure point. And it's difficult, I find, especially in girls. And just because, I grew up with two brothers. I'm the oldest one. And I find that when I make a mistake, I really identify with it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. I'm a total failure. But with them, when they're competing and when they're like, we're playing one-on-one basketball or something like that, they miss a shot and they're like, oh man, the ball's flat. Or it's not on them, right? And so that's such a different perspective that I know that a lot of the girls that I train can't even get to. They want to put that failure on themselves and take responsibility for it so fast that in some ways it is a detriment to their self-confidence, to their ability to recover really, really quick, especially in a game. They're just ruminating in that failure. So I think it's above important. Beyond just preaching it to my girls, I'm actually starting this new venture, I guess you would call it. It's called Defense Club. A lot of people think that it's going to be like, oh, well, this is the new place that I'm going to find defensive drills and more softball stuff. But I think I'm going to surprise some people in that it's going to be all mental game all the time, all sports. So I'm really excited for it. Definitely.
Now, on your website and even on your Instagram, you post motivational stuff and quotes. But one that we found that was pretty important that we liked a lot is, "Who are you when no one's watching?" You've had that posted a couple times, I think. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that means, not only on the field but off the field, maybe a little bit as well?
Absolutely. So, who are you when no one's watching? I wish I could give credit to all the people that have told me this before, but it's something that stuck with me back from when my parents were raising me up when I was in their house. So basically it's the idea of doing the same thing that you would do if your coach was watching you every second of the day, or your mom or your teacher or someone that you hold in high regard that you want to perform your best for. And ultimately the idea is you want to make yourself proud. And while doing that, the reps that you put in or the trash that you pick up when no one's watching, it's not for those other people. You're just trying to be a good person and try your best for yourself because it's the right thing to do. And so I have that quote on my website, actually, and I'm to write to like online workouts, just kind of my way of going, hey, who are you when no one's watching? What is the work that you're putting in? Here are some tools that you can do at home. Because, the biggest excuse for girls when I say, hey, are you practicing what we worked on in class at home? Because that's the only way that you're going to get better. And the excuse is, my dad doesn't get home until whatever time. I don't have anybody to play catch with. I don't have anybody to help me. And that's one of the biggest things about our clinics with the package deal or my lessons. We try to provide girls with tools or just ways that they can do things on their own. With one, nobody watching, and two, so they don't have to rely on people to get better.
Let's talk about some of those lessons. I think you might be one of the first position player interviews we've had on here. We've had many pitchers and catchers and things like that on here. So if you could talk about what your weekly lessons look like. I see that it's separated by lessons and workouts, and also you had something called groundwork, which we'll get into. But for the weekly lessons, for the person who would like to sign up for that, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Totally. My lessons are all group lessons. I don't do any privates anymore. In my early years, I totally did, just because every parent wants their daughter to have one-on-one time. And I just am totally against it. Just for the fact of you're playing a team sport, you might as well be around other people. And honestly, it's a great learning tool to be able to look at adjustments that someone else is making, so you don't make the same mistake that they did. So they're all group lessons. They are separated by the hour based on age and or ability, just because no player is created the same, right? I have some 9-year-olds that are more skilled than some of my 12-year-olds. So we kind of cross over just depending on where they measure up. And then, every class is a little bit different. So we do go over throwing, footwork, glove work. It's an indoor space, so we don't do live reps on a field ever. That's what I'm really excited for groundwork for. But weekly, we are inside on turf, and there's some limitations to that. But widely, I love working with the groups, just because the girls can have a safe space to work on their skills, fail if they need to, ask questions. And it's a good time. I do it Monday through Wednesday every single week.
Now, I was going to ask this later, but you kind of touched on this a little bit. So we have a fan question that I put in here later in the interview, but I figured I should ask it now because you kind of answered it a little bit, but maybe you could spend a little more time on it. Adam Juarez from Instagram asks, now this is technically for a pitcher, so you might not be able to answer this, but I figured from a coach standpoint, you could kind of give some feedback of what you think. But what are your views on coaches who teach pitching in groups and not on a one-on-one basis? And is there a certain age that you would recommend they branch off and do a one-on-one? Or are there other reasons to do a one-on-one? So I don't know if you want to answer for the pitching, but as a coach, what do you think?
I think there are different reasons to do different types of training. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I myself, of course, I'm not a pitcher,
right.
But, and it honestly is baffling to me that they can throw it that hard underhand. I still don't understand it. So, in that respect, I think it's complicated to me, pitching. So I would be an advocate of seeking out private coaching, but there's definitely a purpose for private coaching, and there's ways to, or there's people that you can find that would definitely do defensive coaching privately. It's just my belief that in the group setting that I am best suited to coach girls in that setting. Right. That's not saying that some girls might not benefit from me coaching them privately, because I think they could learn a great deal, but I think my style and what I want them to learn from my lessons is best suited for groups. So that being said, definitely seek out private coaching if you feel that I guess where the weakness lies is maybe in, okay, she's not getting this single concept. I need someone to break this thing down. Gotcha. But if you're looking for kind of I think that girls come to me to seek out confidence, to be able to get a great workout in, to get a breakdown of the fundamentals, absolutely, but more so to get that voice that's saying, like pushing them hard, but also letting them know that it is okay to fail. I think that I kind of bridge those things together, and with the defensive game, no, you're not going to get an out unless somebody on the other side catches the ball. So I can tell someone or teach them how to throw the ball harder or faster or whatever. But a lot of the times with these girls, once they learn how to throw the ball hard, that we're kind of losing that connection of like, oh, well, I can throw the ball 60 miles an hour over to first base, but no one's going to catch it. Right. So I like having those groups together just because that's the game, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Now, for you, Morgan, when you have a girl, show up, what is your beginning emphasis? Is it footwork? Is it glove work? Is it hand-eye coordination? Is it, the sequence of fielding? Where do you start with the girls that you're working with in these groups?
I think one of the biggest places that I start is if you can see the ball, you can catch the ball, and that's going to cover a ton of different things. It covers posture, because if you're standing wrong, you're putting your position or you're putting your glove in the wrong spot, even to start. If you're not taking the right approach to the ball with your footwork, you're not going to be able to see the ball for the right amount of time that your eyes need to react. So I guess that's the first thing, is you can see the ball, you can catch the ball. And then it also just really depends on the skill level of the girl coming in. A lot of girls do have tiny areas that I'm going to be pulled to comment on. And so, I only have probably 1 or 3, I guess, would be the max, new girls every week. Most of my lessons are consistent, that come every week or every other week. So with those new girls, they kind of jump in my regular lesson plan, and I don't have a progression necessarily that every new girl has to go to these 5 classes before they can come in the regular class. They hop in my regular classes, and I'll kind of tweak maybe if their throw is a little bit wonky or something of that sort. I'll work on those little areas, but definitely if you can see the ball, you can catch the ball, covers a lot. And then I'm biased to footwork just because there's a lot of girls that won't ever have the ability to throw the ball hard enough to give themselves more time to make mistakes on the side of fielding the ball. But if their footwork is efficient, it'll make up for a ton.
Now, if you could talk a little bit about another tab on there was your workouts, and when you click on that, there's drill library, summer program, college prep, CN 2020. I'm just curious, could you talk a little bit about those programs?
Oh, totally. So I actually just updated a lot of these. There's a couple that stayed the same, but they are separated. I just hopped on my website too, because I'm now finally getting that you guys are going through my website. It finally clicked to me. So they're separated by individual development and team defensive workouts. And as far as that classification, I think some of them fit perfectly. Some of them, I should probably change that divider or how they're classified. But I definitely put these on there just for those people that want more than I'm putting out for free on my Instagram, for free on my YouTube channel. I give out a lot of information, as does the package deal, but these workouts are for those people that want my drills explained in kind of in a written out way. I haven't gotten around to filming an actual video series where I go through and can talk through each and every drill and why I created it and why it's useful. But yeah, these are just for those girls or families or coaches that are looking for a little bit extra than I give out online, just because I know that not everybody's local to me and they can't just drive over for a lesson.
Nice. Yeah. Now, and this is what I've been kind of waiting to talk to you a little bit about, because I know it's kind of new and it's coming up, and I don't know how much you can talk about it yet. But is your groundwork thing? I know you've been you were posting about it for the past couple, like 2 months, I think, on Instagram pretty regularly to the build up. Can you just talk a little bit about what that's going to look like and how that's going to be different than either doing a lesson with you or even what the package deal does? Can you just talk about everything that's going to be involved in that and what some of the people you have helping you do that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited. And what's really cool about the timing of this call is yesterday I wrote all of my workouts for it. I'm probably going to have to go and edit them down just because I think they're going to be very, very difficult. But the purpose of this was an all defense setting for girls to be able to, yes, practice defense and get out on the field and be around these other awesome college coaches, professional coaches, and get them all the help that they can get from these women that were in their shoes. So to create that experience for them, to kick their butt in the workout, but also talk about the things that I hold so close and are those things that I wish that I learned when I was 12, 13, 14 years old. So that is recovery, arm health and arm care. Nutrition is going to be huge, and majority of my sponsors actually for this event are in the nutrition field or just food in general. So, and then I'm doing a lot of giveaways. There's let's see what else. Gosh, I guess. Oh, my guest speakers are really, really cool. Natasha Watley is going to be there my first day, and hopefully your listeners know who this is, because I know a lot of the girls somehow don't know who Natasha Watley is, but she was my role model growing up. She's one of the best players to ever play the game, multi-time, all-time performer at UCLA, Team USA. She's just a stud and amazing. So she's coming out. Nice. My travel ball coach, or former travel ball coach, Marty Tyson, who has sent hundreds of girls to colleges. And then Jake Marisnik, who actually is an old family friend. He went to Poly High School. He's my brother's age. They played baseball together. But he's not reigning world champion anymore, but outfielder for the Houston Astros. So
wow.
Really, really excited.
It's a good lineup.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty good. I'm excited just because it's the first one, and also because I know that I can pretty much make anything happen that I want. So there's a lot of movement, there's just, I don't know, things that I don't get to do every week or in the package deal. I'm excited. I can't tell.
Now, can you believe, I mean, I haven't obviously been ingrained in, we have young daughters that are 10 years old that have played softball since they were like 5 and 6 years old, and they've been playing travel softball for the past 2 or 3 seasons. So we're getting more and more into it as being dads and stuff like that. But can you believe the amount of support now that is becoming into the softball community through sponsorships and, with Nike and all these other companies now that seem to be realizing there's an untapped market with female athletes?
I can believe it just because ESPN has done a great job of giving softball more and more airtime. I mean, the exposure means people are starting to see softball in a different light. And if sponsors are coming, that means those sponsors see money. And so, I mean, that's a great thing, right?
Right.
It's a great thing for our sport just because if there's more resources and more eyes on it, it just means that there's a way for it to keep growing and for opportunities to grow with it. So I love the fact that Nike has sponsored the package deal, and there's other companies that are putting their money where their mouth is. But there's seriously so much room for growth and education of those sponsors on just where they fit in. Because I know that one of the biggest roles with the package deal is just being there as a resource of that education piece, because softball is not like baseball, just culture wise, right? There's the baseball boy is entirely different from the softball girl. Yes, we love to play. We want to get out there, we want to get our reps in, but the story is entirely different just based on the trajectory of their career. As of right now, the softball girl gets up to college and that's the pinnacle. And for the baseball guys, some of those guys just bypass that whole thing and just get drafted out of high school and their career boom or not. You know, it's such a different journey. And so I think that this great support, it's definitely, we haven't reached how high we can go, but it's definitely very exciting.
Nice. Well, I have a two-part question for you with kind of segues nicely into my question here, what you were just talking about. With softball coming back into the Olympics, one, can I get your thoughts on that as a former player and as a coach now, coaching girls that are going to the next level? What are your thoughts on it? And also, do you ever see yourself suiting back up for a national team, possibly?
Well, one, softball in the Olympics, amazing thing. I think that the games being in Japan is suitable for where we are, right? Japan has put a lot of effort into their teams and their professional league, and I love the fact that girls back here in the USA are able to say, "Hey, I want to be an Olympian when I grow up." Just like, I mean, it used to be one of a goal of mine too, just because those are the women you look up to as you're playing that sport. So it's amazing for the sport, and I hope that it catapults it. As far as myself playing, I think my only option would be playing for Team Philippines, and which would be great. I think that honestly, I'm past in my mind, I'm past my player's mind, but that's. I don't want to say that, and then you see me in a uniform in 2020. so nothing's out of the question. I've been asked, but I don't know. There's something about me too that wants to give that younger generation their shot, because I mean, I haven't been practicing. I've been coaching for the last 5 years, and some of these girls and women have never lost hope of that Olympic dream. And for me, I just kind of thought it wasn't an option. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll coach, no problem. And I'm having a great time. So I just think that the more girls and women that want to strive to get to that Olympic dream, I don't want to overshadow them just because I don't know, just because I'm me. I don't know. It sounds so weird, but
I'll say
I don't know.
real quick, I think it's going to be interesting for Team USA how they're going to handle that roster of putting that team together, because you have so many veterans that, you know, were a part of the last Olympic run that are still capable of playing. And then now you have an entire generation of youth coming through, and putting that roster of, I think 15, 16 women together. That's going to be an awfully difficult task for that committee, right?
Oh, I think so. I would think so. But also with Team USA, something really important to think about is, this is where Team Philippines doesn't have this problem, is those veterans know how to win a gold medal. So, I mean, for me, because football is such a mental game, I know that when I played for Team Philippines in that summer that I did, I was a completely different player just based on I didn't take failure as hard. And I had that seasoned feeling of confidence when I took the field, just because I was playing like I didn't have anything to lose, right? So there's definitely pros and cons of having those veterans on the team. Your guess is as good as mine who's going to make that final roster, though.
It's going to be exciting. And if we see you in uniform in 2020, we will tag you in a post.
Yeah, go for it.
We're kind of winding down here with the questions. I wanted to see, was there anything that we missed? Or is there anything that you would like to add? Any words of wisdom? Anything you'd like to say that maybe we didn't get with our questions?
I think you guys had a good range of questions that, I mean, I feel like I've just been talking for 45 minutes straight. So you kept me going. I think that's all I got.
All right.
Now, if our listeners want more information, they want to find out more about what you're doing or want to get in contact with you, can you let our listeners know what your website is and your social media stuff is, if they would be able to reach out to you if they had any questions or had any questions on the drills and stuff that are on your website?
Oh, totally. So my website is morgan-stewart.com, and Stewart is spelled Stuart, like Stuart Little, not the regular Stewart. And my Instagram is morganstewart18. I do have a YouTube channel. You can probably just search Morgan Stewart, and it comes all the way up. As far as getting in contact with me for lessons, you just go to the lessons tab. That email goes straight to my phone. I have a scheduler now and big time, so my scheduler, Nicolette, will get you on my schedule. So, yeah, pretty simple. That's all you got to know.
We need to get a scheduler.
We do. That
Our wives
It's
said
really
no.
nice.
Awesome. One last question I have for you. Now, let's just say hypothetically in 2020, you get you're on the field and you get an at bat for a national team
against Cat Osterman.
Yeah. Let's just
gosh.
let's just say you got in there. What song are we choosing as your walkout song to the plate?
If I am on the field in 2020, I think I would just take it back to AC/DC, Back in Black. My dad would really appreciate it. He'd probably giggle to himself that he has influenced me to like AC/DC. And if I'm back in 2020, I'm definitely Back in Black. So that's what I'll stay with.
All right. I love it. And we really appreciate you coming on. Tons of good knowledge for our young listeners and our coaches. And we really appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Morgan. Best of luck moving forward in the future, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Absolutely. Anytime, you guys.
All right. See you. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. As always, make sure you check us out on all things social media at Going Yard Podcast, and of course on Twitter at Going Yard and the number 2.
Yes, if you like this episode, along with all of our other episodes, make sure you check us out on iTunes, SoundCloud, Podbean, and Google Play. Leave us a 5-star review if you would. And share this episode. Tag somebody in it if you can. Share it. That way we can spread the word. And Morgan had some great information. So if you know another softball player or coach out there who's looking for more knowledge, share it with them. Let them know. Connect more people in the community. That way the community can continue to grow, Dan.
That's right. And we appreciate all your support, everyone. Thank you so much, week in, week out. So that's a wrap for this episode. So from all of us here at the Going Yard Podcast and 30 Frock Studios, I'm Dan.
And I'm Tyler. See ya.
Later.